The purpose of the personal statement is really to give them a picture of you, right? In the previous statement that I just read, which was created by ChatGPT, it was all the right things to be saying, but I didn't get a sense at all of who the person is. What are their unique qualifications? What are their experiences? What is your commitment, right? A little bit of the commitment was coming through, right, with this one example. What is your sell? What makes you the perfect fit for their program, right? Why would I select you over others? And I think importantly, one way to kind of frame this is to think about what would AI not be able to say, right? What would a large learning model not be able to pick up from your CV, from your, from all of your materials, and not be able to say? And that, I think, is your personal statement, right? So for me personally, it's not your grades, it's not your CV. It's basically highlighting qualities that are particularly relevant to the job that you're about to apply for, right? So I would say that, of course, it's important to work really hard on your CV, work obviously very hard on your medical education and get good grades. But the personal statement piece, which is what we're devoting 45 minutes to today, is a very unique part of it, right? But it's also one part of the puzzle. So I would say it's an equally important part because it will make the puzzle whole. So do pay attention to it. So going back to what it means to me, it's exactly the same things. It should be a picture of you, unique things about you, your cell, your experience, and something that AI is not able to say. A lot of people have a lot of trouble with this, right? I've had people who've come to my office and they've said, oh, Dr. Mirza, we don't know what to talk about. And it's just been a couple of questions that I asked them. Like, what are your hobbies, right? So, for example, I recall someone who was applying to medical school, and they, this was obviously not residency, but the rules still apply. And they were a big gamer. And they were like, oh, I want to hide the fact that I'm a gamer, right? And I was like, why? Why do you want to hide it? Can you find an aspect of gaming that ignites your passion, that you can also use that characteristic to prove that you are going to be an incredible medical student, right? And I think that for them, I could see an aha moment, because before they were, even as they were talking about themselves, as they were talking about their application, they were kind of like ho hum, like ER, oh, everything is boring. But as soon as they started talking about gaming, they lit up. And I think that it's about finding that spark of what makes you you. Let's start with the skeleton. So the skeleton of a personal statement, to me, a theme. This is, again, my personal recommendation. You don't have to follow it. But a theme, I think, is much better than chronology, right? So, for example, you can have a theme that runs the thread of your personal statement, which I think can be more impactful than having a chronology of I grew up, I went to school, I went to med school, and then I'm doing this. I mean, that's kind of nice, but it should all kind of come together. It should highlight why you want to do your specialty. And I cannot recommend this enough. You need to write and revise and revise and revise. You will find that there will be, take out any filler words, make it more succinct, read statements over and over again. Do invest your time in this personal statement, because I think it can be really valuable. Make sure to avoid rehashing your medical school statement. The 4 years of medical school, or however many years your medical school was, mine was 5, I mean, have shaped you. And so if you're still going back to the thoughts that you had when you were a pre-medical student, that's probably not highlighting your candidacy really well, right? Because you have grown in medical school. It's impossible not to grow during the medical school experience, right? So therefore, don't be too steeped in the past. It shouldn't be something insane that happened a very long time ago, unless it's very relevant to this day, to your application, to the specialty that you're applying to. So find an angle, and then you can talk about real experiences, right? And so, for example, I would recommend be very specific. It shouldn't be broad, right? Like the AI generated personal statement in the beginning was super broad, right? Lofty. I want to be a surgeon. Sarah was so great. Seeing her parents were so good. But that didn't speak about me, didn't speak about my passion for surgery, didn't speak about anything. It wasn't, you really need to be specific in that angle. You need to make a way to make it interesting. And I'm going to hopefully show you some examples that will clarify this. I would say that it should somehow demonstrate concrete experience, right? I mean, it can't just be a superficial, very kind of touch and go thing that you did a long time ago, and somehow that's really shaping you. I would say that your writing style is, again, your personal style. So I'm not here to tell you that you should change your style, but I do think that if it's a little bit different from kind of routine writing, or it's a little bit lively and a little bit fresh, you have to also think that program directors, especially now that we're all doing holistic, most of us are doing holistic review, we will be reading a lot of these statements. So, think about a novel. Some novels are difficult to read. It's not that they're bad novels. They might be the best novels ever, but some novels are easier to read, right? Think about what your personal style is. How does it click better to you? Maybe being verbose is who you are. Then I'm not here to say to change it, but do think about the person who's reading it and how many statements that they have to read. And I would say the real thing that you need to kind of leave someone with is to make yourself memorable. And, how they say like no publicity is bad publicity. It's not that you want to say something really crass or weird and be memorable for that reason. But I do think that if you have something in your statement that people can like kind of when they put the statement down or when they close the browser, they'll be like, oh, that was interesting. So to me, so I'll give you an example. To me, I used to direct musical plays in college and med school. Okay, and so I wrote my personal statement. And I swear to you, it's not that I'm some guru of personal statement writing. I'm just sharing experiences. I don't even know if my personal statement was effective or not. I mean, I matched, which is great. But I wrote mine as a play. I wrote it in 3 acts, right? So the theme for me was the fact that, yeah, I used to do direct plays in college. And so as a pathologist, I said that a pathologist is very similar to the director of a play, that they're behind the scenes, the actors are in front. You kind of coordinate healthcare from the back, similar to how kind of directors would coordinate, plays in the back. And so I wrote it as scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, right? Was that memorable? I don't know. I was pretty proud of it, right? But, it may not be that every single one of your experiences align like this, but that's one mechanism to think about this. When you open, lead with something that's kind of most important or really that grabs the reader's attention. You have a couple of moments in the personal statement to really grab attention. The first part is important. If it's kind of like a cliche line, I can almost guarantee that you've lost the reader. The other one that you should be familiar with is kind of halfway through when you're going to lose their attention again. Okay, it's just how normal people are. So I would say that if you have like another banger, like right in the middle, it'll recapture their attention, right? And then you have to end it. So attention grabbers can really hook the reader in thinking, that this is a great statement. And so a catchy opener can actually be pretty easy, all right? So let me give you an example that may not be ideal, right? So I'm going to read it. When I was a child, I wanted to know about dinosaurs. That's the wrong spelling. How they lived, what they ate, and what they looked like. This made me choose paleontology for college. Spelling incorrect. To prepare, I took a human anatomy class to learn bone names. One day, we watched a video of a hip replacement. After that, I decided I wanted to be a surgeon. Okay, so here it is. And now, using the tools that I've shared with you, let's change this up. I love dinosaurs. When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was learn everything I could about them, how they lived, what they ate, and what they looked like. My love of dinosaurs led me to apply to college as a paleontology major. Like any eager student, I wanted a head start in college, so I decided to take a human anatomy class. My goal was to learn the names of bones. One day in class, the teacher showed us a video of a total hip replacement, and that was it. My entire life's dream shifted. From that day on, I knew I wanted to be a surgeon. Now, this is biased because I'm also reading it differently, okay? But even if you were to read it kind of plain, okay, which statement do you like more? Which one do you align with more, right? Does the I love dinosaurs catch you, right? As opposed to if I go back, it was when I was a child, I wanted to know about dinosaurs with the wrong spelling, right? So these are just the small things that I think that if this has an impact on you, then of course it's going to have an impact on someone else who's reading it. A lot of people ask me about controversial topics and whether we should avoid them or make them a part of it, right? What is controversial? Religion and politics, overly personal things, right? Experiences and extreme, kind of hardships, family problems are those things that you need to put in your personal statement. So, again, this is your personal statement. I'm not here to define what defines you, right? My recommendation would be to avoid them unless they significantly impacted your way in such a way that it would be relevant to your application, okay? So there's always a rule and then sometimes exceptions. So while I say you should avoid them, let me show you an exception where it worked. My mother immigrated from the Philippines to Minnesota as a mail order bride. Amidst the improved living conditions and snowy winters, she was physically abused by my father and repeatedly threatened for her life. Between episodes of abuse, she gave birth to me, her firstborn child. In the thick of her celebration and under postpartum care, her OBGYN recognized her innumerable bruises as an alarm signal of abuse. Without delay, they connected her with the resources necessary to exit her dangerous situation. This was the first of many instances that would provide me insight into the immense privilege that OBGYNs have of caring for extremely vulnerable patients, such as my mother. And so my mother left for California with her newborn infant, and if not for her OBGYN, she and I might not have survived. Now, I would say that this was overly personal, crazy personal, but I will let you be the judge of whether this made an effective statement or not. It's super effective to me, right? If I was an OBGYN program director, I think that this life experience, and you know what they learn from it, right? They're not, it's not like a complaining situation. They're not crying about it. The focus has been how amazing OBGYN is, how their life experience changed because of it, and how they're passionate about it. So I think in this setting, it works. So again, I would say that in your personal statement, controversial topics or overly personal topics may be helpful, but you have to always remember that you don't know the person who's reading it and how they're going to react to it. So if you think that you can kind of think about all the possible outcomes of they're reading it, and you think all of them are positive, then I would say you can include them. Use your personal statement space to be completely genuine and new. So this is also very controversial, but I have been told that it's best to avoid "I was born" or "my parents came from." Now, again, exception to the rule, that OBGYN statement, that was all about their birth and where they came from. So I think if it's really relevant, use it. If it's not relevant, don't. If you want to use autobiographic or itinerary kind of or resume prose, you can, but I would again make sure that a peer reads it and gets the understanding of what you're trying to convey. Verbose and complex words may be part of who you are, and if so, I would stick to them, but in general, I would avoid them. Platitudes, generic statements, prevarication, quotations, too many I's, and no sense of direction are also things to avoid. And I think that in the last couple of minutes and thus far, we've been able to understand kind of why and how to pivot that to make it a more strong statement. So I would say that if you are kind of lost, the keys to success would be to focus on a few illustrative incidents and unite them with a theme or, kind of your thesis. Therefore, then you can use that to outline what you want to say and the order, and then be specific about it. If you are using examples, use concrete examples and experiences that, again, distinguish you from others or, your role from others. And in all of this, the lens should be something that interests you and excites you, and end your essay with a conclusion that refers back to the lead, somehow tying it together. So everyone asks about red flags. Does one include them? How do you define red flags? And so I think that, the thing I'll mention about red flags is that if your application has not allowed you the chance to explain a red flag that you can explain, I would say the only way to do it, I would say, yes, include it, but the only way to really include it is to turn it around. During my senior year of undergrad, I was diagnosed with depression and got the help I needed to become the best student I could be. Through this experience, I learned the importance of advocacy for myself and others. Once I sought help for my mental health, my entire academic career changed. I use this skill now to advocate for my patients. So for example, as the previous speaker was saying as well, maybe you have a gap in your medical education and it was because of a diagnosis such as depression. If you feel comfortable sharing that information, the only way you can put that, I don't think this is a red flag. This is something real that happened to a human being. But some people will say, well, the discrepancy in the training, whatever, could be a red flag. So I'm not here to define what red flags are. I'm here to just tell you that if you've had significant experiences that have made you go away from the regular path, right? Anything that makes you different. The question is if you would like to explain it and if you're comfortable sharing it, the only way to do it, in my opinion, is to turn it around as a positive experience and to talk about the lessons that you learned. Because I think that that can go far, and I think it can elevate your personal statement as well. Although devastating at the time, not matching gave me the chance to pause and reflect on what I most appreciated about medicine and surgery. As my thoughts became clearer over time, I realized that this appreciation is towards studying diseases. I reached out to Dr. PK, a pathologist faculty leader of the XYZ Pathology Interest Group, for guidance. His pre-clerkship pathology lessons left a profound impact on me, and I knew I could turn to him for help. Working closely alongside Dr. PK and the other members in XYZ since, I have been rejuvenated knowing that I was meant to be a pathologist. As a future pathologist, I hope to establish a foundation of excellence as I further my training and residency while accomplishing 3 vocational goals. First, I will continue to learn how to become an exceptional team member. Next, I will stay involved in meaningful research. And lastly, I will actively engage in mentorship and educational opportunities. So again, if you are going to talk about not matching, I want to know what happened. Like, not matching is something you can't control anymore, right? What happened since that time? What did you do? Did you just sit at home and twiddle your thumbs, or did you do something that kind of changed the trajectory of where you're going? So I would say that, give program directors some credit. They do look at the trajectory of things more so than, specific incidents. And I think that if a program is paying too much attention to specific incidents, then you may not want to be in that program anyway, right? And so think about this, from that perspective. The top 10 most overused personal statement opening sentences are: number 1, from a young age, I have always been interested in dash. Number 2, medicine is a very challenging and demanding career, ... Number 3, for as long as I can remember, I have been fascinated with that. Again, not to say that these are not appropriate things to say. You can totally say them, but that could, you have to follow it up with something that makes perfect sense.